with all due respect, 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 with.
What's going on, y'all? It's your main man Mo, one half of the duo of the With All Due Respect podcast. This episode right here was brought to you by Sweet Peas Cakeries, owned and operated by Miss Portia Wright, home of the Mo Pies, as well as Shapari's Allure, owned and operated by Miss Chiquina Lynch, and lastly, A1 Advanced Grooming, owned and operated by my man Tristan Jackson, aka Tree. Y'all go check out our people, all right? Enjoy the show. This is the With All Due Respect podcast, presented by Mo Knows, with your girl, Lady Simone. Me, your main man Mo. Today's guest is Mr. Seldon Peden. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
All right.
Good to see you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Seldon, tell us a little bit about yourself. Actually, we spoke before. I know your background, but for those who may not know, who's viewing, give us a little bit about your background.
Born and raised here in Greenville. Went to the public schools in Southside High School. My parents, my mom's an educator. My dad worked at General Electric, but he was involved with NAACP for years. After that, went to Morehouse in Atlanta and University of DC for law school. Came back here, I was a homeboy, worked for different agencies, Department of Social Services, Legal Division, Department of Juvenile Justice, the Guardian Ad Litem's office. Recently got appointed to a judgeship maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Before that, was married. My wife passed from cancer about 5 years ago. I had 2 wonderful boys, Ashton and Seldon, and a stepson, Cameron, who's now 21. And other than that, working and chasing kids all over the place.
Yes, sir. When we spoke before, you said about passing the bar. I remember that conversation. How many attempts did it take you to pass the bar?
It took me total 8.
And I remember, I was like, really, 8 times? Is it really that bad of a test to take?
I'm a bad test taker to begin with.
I am too.
I have problems kind of disciplining myself. So if my parents or my family would say, hey, we're having a cookout, I would go. Or if my friends said, hey, let's go play some ball, I would go. So part of it was disciplining myself. Okay. The second part was just, there's a large, voluminous amount of information you have to hold in your head for 3 days. Now, I can go find and research anything, but to hold it in my head in one day is where, and regurgitate it on a timed basis, that's a challenge for me.
Did you ever get discouraged in any of those 8 attempts?
Absolutely.
At which way through did you want it to say throw in the towel, like that's it?
I'm kind of a stubborn kid with a chip on my shoulder, so I never said, hey, I'm just gonna try a different path. Now, my family, out of love, would always say, hey, because they hate to see me hurt, hey, why don't you try becoming a paralegal? Or why don't you try going to another state? So they would kind of offer suggestions to do something different. But I just continue to go and go and go.
So, like, in order to continue, you had to get to a point where you knew that was what you wanted to do. What actually gave you that, like, this is what it is that I'm supposed to do?
So I mentioned earlier, my dad was involved with NAACP. He was the president for several years. And so kind of watching him and kind of how the organization did things, they ended up doing a lot of marching, a lot of protests, a lot of meetings, but there was never any finalization or authority that they had. Mm-hmm. So it always depended on, will this march influence somebody else to do something? Will this protest convince somebody else to do something? I wanted to get involved with something where there was some finality, where there was some authority to apply some enforcement. And so that came for me through the law. And so I approached that so that win or lose, it was some enforcement or action behind it. And so that's how I got there.
So with you being a judge and whatnot, with today's climate, which they like to say that it's a target on our back as African-American males, do you feel that?
I would describe it as a target. I would describe it as there's a perception of, there's an ill-informed perception of black males in particular, black people in general, that create...
And brown to some extent.
And brown, absolutely, without a doubt. That create certain responses. D.L. Hughley once said that the most dangerous place for a black man to reside is in a white person's imagination. That has a lot of truth to it. And so Yeah, that there's a lot of things that people perceive or believe about us through the media or parents or upbringing that lead to certain reactions, whether by law enforcement, that lead to certain policy implications. Whether it's a target or ignorance, misinformation, does exist.
So what would be your remedy for that? By you being on the other side of the table looking at these individuals, may it be the officer or may it be the actual individual that has been violated in some sort, not knowing who's right or who's wrong in that situation. On the other side of the table, how do you actually remedy that situation? Outside of just, okay, because obviously time is not helping, as in, okay, I'm gonna give you 3-4 years and you come out rehabilitated, because honestly, I don't think the prison system's even focused on rehabilitation anymore. So how do you feel that we should remedy that?
Let me try and understand your question. Remedy in terms of us being a target, or remedy of?
I guess I would say probably both. I guess let's go with a two-part question. Remedy the target, quote unquote, the target, and or us, since we are being targeted for black and brown, how do we need to move about accordingly, knowing this right here? Because if you knew better, you'd do better.
So I'll take the first part in terms of what can we do to kind of reduce the impact, the effect it has on us, target or otherwise. So one is, I think my position, I consider myself kind of being in the system that I recognize is biased and harmful. So there are parameters I have to operate in. However, my perspective allows me to kind of, one cut at a time, make change. So if, for example, I know going in, this system is biased against us and harms us, then when I consider a sentence or a judgment, I look at the big picture as well as the individual circumstance. So if I know that black males are sentenced at a higher rate than white males, then if I sentence a black male, I consider that as well as what's going on here. Okay. So I put that into a factor. I also, it's the same thing. So let's say any other judge comes with a domestic violence case, and if South Carolina ranks, toward the bottom, then that, in my opinion, should be a factor into the sentencing. So that's kind of how I believe from the inside I can do a small part to balance things out.
Yes, sir.
In terms of how we operate to reduce the effect on us from ignorance, misinformation, whatever else. When I talk to people, I always use this example of boxing. So,
would you consider it ignorance? Because, I mean, we have these phones right here. I mean, you got the world in the palm of your hand, then you have repeated
But I think you gotta look at it
though.
this way as well, though. Just because you have a phone, just because not everybody know how to research information. Not everybody knows, just because someone looks at something, they don't quite understand that, they're acting ignorant. Especially if you grew up in something, you live in something, that's a part of your life. You think it becomes you, so you believe that it's okay. So a lot of the things you look at, it becomes tradition. It becomes like, for example, the Honey Boo Boo show. They thought it was okay to, pass gas in stores and do all this. And to us, we're sitting here like, yo, you were like disgusting. You know what I'm saying? But that was something that was just part of how they grew up. So you look at it when it comes down to a lot of foundation for some people, how they grew up plays a big part. So now you have to change, all that, everything like that foundation. And then I think what makes it even harder is to tell somebody. You look at people with country who grew up in the country. They have, little different
mannerisms
than, some other people. So it's hard for you to actually say, what you're doing is ignorant or inappropriate. And they're looking like, what are you talking about? I was doing this all my life. Now I'm just in a different situation. And, so I can't say that just because they have a cell phone, they should automatically know. I can't agree with that.
And so I would describe it like this. So being a male, raising 3 boys essentially, there are things that we've experienced and are used to. So my girlfriend, Pam, and her daughter, Kennedy, so let's say a part of a female's life is if you go on a job interview, there's a real chance that there could be somebody say, hey, I'll give you this job if you come do something with me. That's foreign to me. Doesn't even cross my mind. I don't have to think about, am I dressing too risque? So learning about that gives me a new sensitivity and understanding to where I may have been just oblivious to it or insensitive to it. So I do think ignorance plays a part. Now some of that is sheer greed from others, some of that is sheer malintent, some of that is a superiority complex. So I think all of that plays into it to some degree.
Okay. You made a reference towards boxing or something of that nature.
Right. So in terms of how we should operate.
Okay.
So I was going to ask if people know about Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, as we all know, most powerful boxer.
Most feared.
Exactly. He came in one way. He was going to come and try to knock your head off. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't, didn't think much about it. He came in with the goal to destroy you. He had one fight, one strategy, one method, and that's what it was. Muhammad Ali, on the other hand, was very nuanced. He could dance around, he could take jabs when he saw openings, and then he would lay the punch when it was time. Had some called a rope-a-dope. He let the other person kind of wear themselves out. So I think a lot of times we kind of come in like Tyson. If we're on the street and the officers are doing us wrong, we often want to address it right there in an angry way. That's kind of a lose-lose. Things with our kids in the classroom, even if the teacher is wrong, they sometimes want to address the teacher or not be embarrassed in front of their peers. So they kind of come out like Tyson. I think we have to sometimes be more Ali-like. All right, yes, this officer is doing me wrong, but right here on the street isn't the time to address it. We can do it in court, I can do it in court administration, I can do it with SLED. In the classroom, addressing this teacher right now isn't the best way to deal with it. And my parents know, they know, I'm sure. So I think sometimes, not that we are punching down or deferring, but there's a time and place to take a punch.
Yeah.
And on the street, in the classroom, and sometimes when we are most emotional, isn't the best time to do it.
We say that a lot.
Yeah, we actually had a situation just yesterday with our son. We was actually at an AAU game, and he said, well, Mom, because I was at work, do you mind if I can just go outside and hang out with the other teams as they were waiting on the next match, next game? And I think it was a group of guys that actually asked our oldest son, or I guess you would say,
some kids that were just hanging around, like waiting on their games to start, and he's like, hey, come on, let's fight. I'm like,
you fight this guy, like as if it was Bob Arum or Don King or
Right.
something like that. You fight this person. And my son he just looked, he was like, no. And he walked off and came in to his mother. He's like, why would you just want to fight?
And because I was wondering, I thought it was good for them socially to get out and,
Right.
make it so I wasn't too close on them, but I could see them.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I'm like, less than a minute, they came right back. Like, what happened? What was it? And then that's when he was explaining. I'm like, that to me, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, why would you even want to do that? That's, but I do have a question. When you're on the other side and you have someone that like, that's acting, crazy, maybe in the court or whatever, you want to just look at him and just grab him. Like, listen, if I could only just talk some sense into you. Like, what do you do in those moments? How do you, how do you get that message across? And can you get that message across? Because sometimes when people are just acting out, it's like, it's best to just let them go.
Yeah. On the record, I try to maintain a certain demeanor. A lot of it is sometimes judges will get what I call roll biters. So they put on the robe and they think that they can demean people. Judge Judy kind of syndrome. I try to maintain a civil demeanor. It's not personal between us. This is what we got to go through. And then there are times when I turn the record off and we have a conversation. Like, look, dude, I'm probably 2 or 3 decisions from being where you are. I grew up in 2-5, my kids are in 2-5. Listen, we're technically the same. But you got to get together. So there are a number of things I do off the record. And then, on the record, I do what I have to do. But I don't particularly feel that I'm disconnected from anybody because my kids can be in the same situation. One is in the situation. So
what do you say about for those who may not believe in the judicial system and whatnot? Because you said, okay, we can't handle it like Mike, we got to handle it like Ali, a little bit more graceful. Let's go through the proper channels. But as you see in the news, there are situations clearly to where, like, really? Like this, I think it was just recently there was this lady, I think she did something and they gave her probation and she killed somebody, a little kid, something of that nature, I can't really recall. And they gave her probation and you look at it, it seems as if the other side of the fence are getting kind of pats on the, even Dylan Roof, which I had the opportunity to see this guy. I mean, it was totally by accident, but I seen him, and weird looking guy in person. But
don't just say what you say. He was scary looking.
No, very, very scary looking guy in person. I actually went to go visit a friend of mine that was locked up in Charleston.
Okay.
And me not being in the system to visit someone in a while, I thought it was still you go to the window.
Okay.
But now it's the actual video. If that's the case, I would stay home and do it from my laptop.
Gotcha.
But you sit in the booth and there's a video right there. You can see them through the video.
Okay.
So me, they was like, Mr. Morrison, you're up. And I said, okay. So I bypassed the video area and I went straight to the booth.
Right.
So I'm looking through the booth and I'm like, okay, where's my friend at? And I walked by one booth and I looked. I backed up real slow and I just kind of stared there and looked, and he was standing up. He was seeing his lawyer. And he was standing up, and I'm looking at him. I did this number right here like a dog would.
Right.
Like, is this really this guy right here? And I just looked at him for a minute. And I'm like, yeah, he's scary looking. I mean, by far I'm not no punk. I mean, I stand 6'5", 6'6", 200 plus. I'm like, yeah. But nonetheless, what do you say? Because they actually took him, and I got him something to eat, if I'm not mistaken, right? But then a situation just recently in Houston, what was it, Baytown? Not Houston, it was Baytown, Texas, I believe it was, near Houston. There was a lady that was walking through at night or whatnot. From what I'm understanding, she wasn't all the way right in the head.
And see, that's the thing too. I want to touch on that because a lot of times I feel like the media feed us what they want to feed us. There's different parts of the story that we don't understand, and I think that's what heightens it a little more. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, it does not make it right.
Any mental issues that she may have been battling or whatnot, granted what took place, I don't feel was warranted.
Right.
As far as, I think she was shot 5 times, something of that nature. And from what I could see through the video, I don't think she put up that much of a fight. Mm-hmm. So again, when you see these situations going on and on and on, how can we actually have faith in the judicial system?
You should not. You absolutely should not.
It's a tough question.
You shouldn't.
Yeah, it's tough.
So why not at that point, instead of going Martin, we go Malcolm then? I mean, because if
we go Malcolm, it's still not gonna do nothing. We gonna still end up,
this
in
is
the
true,
situation
and by no means am I actually citing anything whatsoever. Sure. But you have both. You have A and you have B. Right. And if we're going the nice route, okay, we're going to protest. Okay, we're going to actually take this to court. And you see over and over, this is going this way, not in our favor. It only leads you to actually want to go the other route. So you know what? Let's try this route right here. Let's see what happens at that point. Again, I'm not citing anyone.
So pretty much, I guess the question would be, what can we do to make us not want to do the Malcolm route and continue on the Martin route?
Don't know if there's a right answer. Okay. What I would suggest is understand that the system we live in is the system we live in. I mentioned earlier, perception or others' imagination is a very dangerous place for us. That's how Dylan Roof and others who shoot up schools can actually kill a number of people and get taken to jail. We, for selling cigarettes or having a hoodie and skills, we ended up getting killed for just existing. So again, there's that. My belief is we increase our chances of survival if we don't aggressively confront somebody who's already in a altered mental or emotional adrenaline state as well. So I think we increase our chances for survival. And even down the line, we can either expose the hypocrisy, the inconsistencies in the system. And I think, truth be told, so I work with a lot of officers who come to me to get arrest warrants and search warrants. There's a relationship that can be built there among judges who sign the warrants and them. As they get the warrant, hey, come by for a cookout, or hey, how's the family? Unless a judge consciously goes in and realizes, hey, this has to remain professional, it's easy to get cozy and sign certain things that should not be signed. Having said that, I recognize that ultimately officers to a large degree, are street officers. Often non-college educated, military, previous military guys who are now law enforcement officers. So they come from the military, which is kind of how to kill people in training, to police officers, where they should have de-escalation training, they should have conflict resolution training, and that's often not the case. And so that's how you end up getting excessive force sometimes. That's how you sometimes get people shot or tased sometimes, because if a suspect tries to run, officer sometimes gets offended that you tried to get away from it. So now, when I get you, I'm gonna hurt you up a little bit.
You're gonna pay the price.
When I get you, I'm gonna stack some charges on you. And I believe, as a state-sanctioned law enforcement officer with training and weapons and backup, there should be enough in your arsenal to not have to do those things. So I think we increase our chances of survival if we approach it a particular way, but recognize who you're dealing with from the jump. And then it's better to expose those things on the back end when you have objective people looking at it, and either expose them for their hypocrisy, or kind of expose the system, if that makes sense.
I think sometimes too we can't leave out is that, you know, sometimes when you already have something in your mind and you think like
Preconceived notions.
yes, and you're like, okay, they about to stop, it's gonna be on some stuff, so you automatically go into that, you know. And I always tell people, you can't think like that, because you have the ability to change that situation. You have the ability, you know, someone could come to your car. That's, for example, my sister, she got stopped, and this was like the 3rd time, you know, for speeding. And she was like, man, I already knew I didn't need this ticket. Mm-hmm. So, you know, she said that when the guy stopped her, she said he got out the car, she was just like, okay, listen, I done got 2 tickets on the same road in the same location. Can you please just not give me a ticket? Yeah. And she said that when she said that, the guy was like, now, you know, that does not work. He said, and it usually don't, but today I'm not giving you a ticket. So it's the way that we can approach the situation. We can't always, when you already know, that's like if I know somebody's an angry person, I'm not gonna approach them and be like, oh, No, I'm gonna say, hey, how you doing? You know, and that's something that I was just talking to my oldest about, because he was like, well, Mom, you could get along with everybody. I said, because when I pay attention to people, I can see, I don't look at them for the things that they may are doing or they may have done, because I'm looking like it was something that maybe had allowed them to act that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody don't come out wanting to be angry.
True.
Somebody wants to be loved. You want a hug, you want to smile. And I feel like, you know, they may not know it. So the person who walked by me with the face like, I'm like, hey girl, how you doing? Like, you know, and they're looking like, why is she so happy? Because I want you to be happy. And then you never know. You know, I was sitting by a parent, and I'll say this lady was, she was on. She was like, yeah, let's go. All right, boys, what you doing? And she was just on it at the game. And the youngest was like, Mom, I want to move. I'm like, no, we're good.
Right.
But in the midst of her being the way that she was, she turned around and she looked at me, and I gave her a little smile. She was like, and I think I started cheering harder for my son's team. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, boys, let's go. And I was like, oh man, y'all got to wake up. She said, yeah, they got to wake up. Now I'm thinking like, you're cheering for the other team. Now we, you know, in this together. And then that's when, yes, and she actually turned around and she spoke to me, and she was just like, you know, yeah, that's my little baby right there. And she just thought, we held conversation. Now somebody else would have looked at it like, oh, look at this lady or this right here. It just, you know.
They confuse that with, well, that's passion. They just confuse it with something else.
Yes, and then, you know, that whole time we sitting there, everybody uptight. But at the end of the day, we both cheering on her. She just do it a different way.
Right.
But you know, even myself, we actually, I was invited to a town hall meeting with Pastor Johnson. Right?
Okay.
He just called me one day and asked me to come, and I was like, sure. And we sat down with the chief of police. This was a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And they actually explained, I never looked at it that way, because I was, of course, I'm not on the other side of the badge. And he said, when we get out of our car, there's not a guarantee that we're getting back to the car. He said, we're just as scared as y'all may be. So when we come there, our job is to diffuse the situations. He said, have all your windows rolled down, hands in visible sight. And he says typically it's not even the driver that's the problem. It's the entourage that's in the back seat saying this, that, and the third. So of course, they said, I even spoke to another officer. He said, our job is to defuse the situation. In some cases, he said, you go in for the kill. Like if there's a hostile situation, we're not sitting there playing around. You need to get back home to your family. Go in for the kill. Not so much as in take their life, but take them down.
Mm-hmm.
So when he actually explained to me that they're just as scared as we are on the other end, I never looked at it that way. Because me, again, I walk around 6'5", 6'6", 250 plus, so I feel I have to move a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
It's something my homegirl actually said, it has to suck to be you sometimes. Because you're a very big guy, and like there's people that just automatically, no matter how well you may speak, no matter how much you might smile, or whatever the case might be, you are a very intimidating big guy.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it is and I do move a certain kind of way, and I'm actually showing my sons how to move as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just certain things that we just can't do.
Yeah.
Is it right? Let's stick around. We can figure that part out later. We're not gonna sit there and try to handle that.
There you go. There you go. I think so. With you being about 6'5", 6'6", me being 6'3", 6'4".
I was gonna really. Okay, we're gonna go with it.
So yeah, you instinctively know based on your height and your environment where you live, there's a particular way you move.
Mm-hmm.
With me and my height and size, depending on where I am, there's a particular way I need to move too.
Mm-hmm.
I need to sometimes let people know, hey, right, exactly.
I do it ahead of, hey, how you doing? I'm right behind you. You all right? Okay, because
Exactly.
I'll walk up on somebody, oh, I'm like, you all right? You doing
Right.
okay? And if someone was real trigger friendly or happy, that could have been a situation.
Exactly.
But yes, sir.
So with officers, I agree and understand wholeheartedly that perspective. I think my positions, and again, as we all said, they're amazing officers. The vast majority are amazing. And from my experience, they do come in trying to de-escalate. And it's often the entourage that escalates tensions. However, I think for an officer to say, my officers come into a situation fearful just like you, that shouldn't be, because you're sanctioned by the state. You've had training. You've got a gun, a taser, 2 or 3 guns, and backup. You have different tools and training in your arsenal that I, as a layperson with none of that, do not have. So we shouldn't approach the same situation with the same fear and anxiety. And when you say they do try to take them down, not take them out, I trust that, at least what I've seen, I haven't heard many cases where the person was shot in the leg and taken down there at the hospital. Most time those shots have ended up in death, that I'm aware of. Tasing is one thing, but when there's been shot, I haven't heard officers shot him in the leg, disabled, officers shot him in the arm. It's been pretty much a chest shot. So I get it and respect it and understand it. I couldn't be an officer because despite what I have on me and around me, I do want to get back to my boys, and I think I would overreact. If a dog barks too loud, I will shoot it. I'm not built to be an officer. Others have to recognize that. If you come into a situation as fearful and as anxiety-ridden as I am, maybe that's not you. But I certainly respect the position when they go through. But I think with all they have and the tools and the arsenal, I think they have more room to de-escalate, to resolve conflict.
With you also being an educator outside just being a judge, what can we do within our school systems to actually, because it's a process. You know,
I think it trickles down too.
Well, I would say trickle up at this point right there, because it starts here, as far as our kids' age, and then we become adults. So like you said, if you didn't know any better, you're going to continue to do this.
So pretty much, how do we attack it at the level of our kids?
Yeah.
Because clearly we have some kids that, you know, have
Like
no
yesterday.
respect at all for us, let alone law enforcement's adults.
Yes.
You know, so how do we approach that right there? Because, you know, I came across that a lot, just, you know, dealing with different children. And when you have a child that's just totally disrespectful and then their parent is disrespectful, now we got a bigger problem.
I see why the child acts like that.
Yeah.
Right. I think, unfortunately, and I said this to other people I talk to, we have to teach our children some hard adult life lessons. So they have less room to be children than we did. We had less room than our parents. And so, whereas my kids like to play, with guns, they don't understand this. I say, hey, you can't have a toy black gun and go outside. You can't even really play with a Nerf gun outside of our home. I play cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians. And so they have to explain why. And so unfortunately they have to learn some adult lessons early.
I feel like it robs them of their childhood at times.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And so I think, to some degree, those kids that we see being disrespectful or emulating their parents, they're emulating some adult behaviors and attitudes. They probably don't know why. But I think if somebody else is countering that at least, to say, hey, there's a better way to do this. Or if you really, your chances are better of getting what you want if we approach it differently. And so hopefully they can see, I know the schools have already a ton of things to do, but if they can get from that teacher or administrator, hey, this works better in this environment than another. There's a guy I listen to often, Ta-Nehisi Coates. He kind of talked about how at home and in the streets and the neighborhood, there's one code of conduct that is successful. One is, I need to do something to preserve myself. If I walk down the street, there's a way I need to act. If somebody eyes me or approaches me a particular way, there's a way I need to act to let them know I'm prepared to protect myself. Our kids sometimes have trouble with shifting from this code in the street to the code in school. My bravado, my attitude doesn't do anything for me in the school. So they have to kind of learn this, become bilingual in terms of how to operate, and it doesn't always translate easily for them.
It was like I actually told you when you was in a child care system, you actually said you felt like you dealt with some, I guess for lack of better terms, knuckleheads. But I used to always tell you it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And I was like, just that little bit of time that you have with them, it won't trump the other 20 hours or whatever hours they have with their environment. But that little 4 hours that you give them can actually, hopefully, later on in life, if not then, later on in life, be like, you know what? I remember Miss Courtney said this right here.
Yeah.
Now I see why she said.
And that's
that
something that I actually never took for granted. Because you deal with so many different kids, and it was one thing because I was at a center a long time ago, and I dealt with a lot of troubled kids. And one thing I actually learned a lot from them, but one thing for me is at the end of the day, kids want you to give them that love. They want you, if you just have to tap in. When you tap in on that trust and that love level, and for me, it wasn't no matter where that kid was from, what that kid was going through, they always looked forward to seeing me because it was something that I was pouring in them. So then it made me understand that whatever I did while I was there, I would give 110% to each one of those kids. And I always say that as they grow up, or even as they go through life, they may still, have trouble moments, but it's something that I would say that would click maybe during one of those moments. And then they'll be like, Miss Courtney did say this.
Right.
So that's something that I always worked hard on doing.
I have a question for you. It actually just popped in my head. With you being in the school system as well as the judicial system, I read before that the person that actually designed the jails also designed schools, or whatever came first, the chicken or the egg, however that may have been. Is there any truth to that right there? Because everything, of course, you read is true.
Right.
Nonetheless,
But it do make sense, though. If you look at it, it is parallel,
You walk
It
in
is
class
parallel.
in jail in a single file line. You have a superior, teacher, or CO. You have someone over him, the principal, or the what's the name of the guy? The warden, the warden, the warden. You get to school and jail on a bus.
Yeah. You have to walk in that line.
You're in a brick wall, cement brick wall, like a jail. You're in a fence, like a jail.
Cafeteria.
And even now, you can't even speak but so much in school when you're eating, similar to a jail.
Yeah.
So it's like, is there any truth to that, or that's just pure coincidence?
The short answer is, I don't know. I've heard the same rumors, and I will say that my experience in education was at a college. So K through 12, not sure about. I've heard that. I will say that I see the education system generally as a training ground for how well do you follow instructions.
Absolutely.
I think elementary school, you stay in your classroom, you travel as a class together. Middle school, they'll allow you to stay on the same hall, but can you get from your next class to your next class? High school, you go individually. College, you can choose to go or not go. But when you get to corporate America, wherever you go, you expect to follow our instructions. So, and then when you just mentioned the jail, it takes you right back to that. That's
it
because,
does.
hey, if you don't follow instructions enough in society, we're gonna put you right back in this setting. Hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's
Wow. Yeah.
that's interesting.
Because it was so crazy because right we saw it, someone was saying the patterns of the floor and all
even
this
the pattern,
like
yes,
crazy
it's
stuff.
the bland colors, the just
Yep.
it just seems like is
Yeah.
it really designed? Is there a formula that's being used at this point, which some would definitely say yes.
Yeah.
There's a formula that's being used right here. We're going to keep you within these parameters. You need to follow these parameters. You're not going to get too far removed from this right here because we already conditioned you for 12 years in school to get ready for if you don't abide by these rules to go to this institution.
I think the more and more you think about it, it is one of those questions that'll make you.
It certainly, I can see as the standardized testing and grades kind of follow you from K through 12, you can kind of say, hey, this kid doesn't appear to be on a college track. Or this kid, based on discipline, seems to be one that may have some challenges. I can see how that can be used. I can't verify it. I pray that's not the case, but I can't say I would be completely shocked if it is.
He said K through 12. Just recently they changed the grading system. As far as, and when I was in school, 100 to 93 was an A, 92 to 85 was a B, 84 to 77, so forth and so on. Right now, it's 100 to 90 is an A, 89 to 80 is a B, and 79 to 60 something is a C.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's crazy.
I definitely, because we even told our children, they told us of this new grading system, which I think was just implemented recently within the last few months or something
No,
like that.
I think we had, has it been a year?
It's been a year?
It's been,
I know he's had it.
yeah, it's been a while.
So that means, I guess it really
it's
just
been
hit
recent,
last year.
but not like by a whole lot. Like, yeah.
We
but-
told our sons, you're gonna go by the same rules that we went by. You're not gonna sit there and come in and tell me like, Daddy, I made a B and it's an 80, that's a C, son. We're not gonna do that.
I can tell you, so my former wife was a school teacher, and they have between 28 and 30 kids. They grade classwork, grade homework, and if you as a parent don't take some charge of your child's education, if your kid is doing okay and quiet, it will just sit over there. The kids who are causing trouble or falling behind will get the attention because the parents tend to make the most noise. And so the school district has a balance. How do we make it easier and better for our teachers? How do we, keep these parents off our back? So hey, we'll lower the grading scale. My girlfriend and I were at a meeting where a parent was saying, hey, there's too much homework. Homework is now optional.
Yes, it is. I was going to
Absolutely.
say that. I think that's the most mind-blowing
Absolutely.
thing because, and this was before I actually left that daycare because I worked with after schoolers.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there like, I know good and well nobody had homework. And I'm like, so I said, this don't make sense.
Right.
So we actually contacted a teacher, and she's like, no, and that's when she was telling us. And then I'm just like, because even with our youngest, he don't have homework. So I actually contacted his teacher too, and I'm just like, listen, whatever it is, can you please just give me something, some type of direction? Let's, let him work on something. So I have to pull from different stuff at home to help him. And now I just come up with my own thing.
Yeah.
But I think that is just mind blowing. And they need homework.
What was the reason the teacher told you?
I can't remember.
I think it was something along the lines of they wasn't going to do it anyway. The parents aren't sitting at the table doing it with them.
No, that was the conversation we had with another lady that was telling us, and she was like, that's when they were saying that parents, are not actually doing it, and kids are
And
not,
I think in that
they're
situation,
making a
on
big
behalf of
fuss.
the parents, half of it they're trying to keep up with life. They're trying to provide for the 3 and 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. So they may not have the time to sit down and do this, right? So you got a lot of kids that are raising themselves.
Absolutely.
So when you're looking at the thing, when we start to break this thing down again, the grading scale, the parallels from prison and our schools, it really seems as if it's designed to dumb things down, and actually this formula or this agenda is going to be pushed this way. It really seems like it's that. And my wife actually asked, because she homeschooled the kids a couple of times.
Okay.
I was totally against it because I felt like it was going to mess with their communication skills with one another, with their peers and whatnot.
Right.
I'm ready to sign up for homeschool right now.
Because there's different things in place to where they still are able to do prom, you know, because
Yes.
you get with the organization, and they're still able to do a whole lot of stuff and play in sports and do, you know, so I feel personally for me, that's a great option for the kids. I feel like, you know, I'm able to not only teach them, you know, what the basics are, and then we're going to cut out a whole bunch of the standardized testing thing to make sure the schools get these high grades, but then I can teach them about different parts of the world. I can teach them about finance,
And
how to
actually stuff
maintain,
you really
that they
need.
will use.
You're not going to need arithmetic when you got a negative in your bank account. You don't need arithmetic at that point.
Because basic math now, you know, they're playing little Sudoku puzzles to solve a problem. Now that tears
Even
me
the
up.
long way to do a math problem, the long
It
way.
takes one sheet of paper, and they
Come
don't
on.
even have a sheet of paper and no pencils because the teachers don't keep the pencils.
That's right.
So I have to say, you know, so.
I agree. I think there's a stark difference between succeeding in school and getting an education. With the teachers having to buy their own supplies and asking parents to bring supplies, they're almost in survival mode themselves. And then they're kind of being judged based on how well their kids do on the standardized testing.
Yeah.
So they're in survival mode themselves. So I think it's now a large part, how do we succeed through this education system versus are my kids being educated on, you know, culture and
Finances.
Finance.
Ultimately,
Absolutely.
it's finances.
Yes.
And so I think parents have to take a larger role in that. Like it literally has to be probably 70-30 parent school. But the school can prepare your kids to take these tests, or they may learn history in 1 week, 2 week blocks. But in terms of really being educated on what they'll need in life, that's now on us.
Yeah.
And it's not just a bad thing. Is
We have to set that
Just-
foundation.
Right.
And I feel like that's very important, and we take for granted just those little things, because I have the pleasure of doing teaching online with kids in China. Then I have a student who's an adult, and we talk so much, like for hours. We're sitting there, she's booking classes, and we're talking just about different things, and we're comparing it to. And like she even said that there's some things in China that she feels like the kids, you know, don't need to know, and they kind of put so much into them. And then I'm looking at on our end, like I feel like there's not much getting, you know, put in to our kids that they would need.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, for me,
Medium is necessary.
it is. And then for me, I guess for our situation, homeschool seems the most appropriate. And not only that, you know, you got just like the situation with the boys, you know, being approached and wanting to fight. And you got, I mean, let's just put it out there as far as the kids, more and more kids are committing suicide. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because it's like at that age, how do you even get in your mind? I don't think I even thought about that in elementary school. You know, it was no thought. I wouldn't even think to do the things, you know. So that right there plays a lot. So it's like it's not being an overbearing parent, because I don't want to look at it that way, but you have a little more control. It still does not take them away from that.
I think it's necessary to start being an overbearing parent. I think it's it's a necessity at this point. It's not even a luxury or just something that we can do leisurely. No, we have to do that at this point.
Yeah.
This right is my last question for you, Mr. Seldon. In Houston again, did you hear about the principal that actually enforced the dress code for the parents? Miss Brown? I'm gonna tell you, I actually reached out to her. I reached out to her 3 times, and I left a voicemail every time I called. She was in a meeting, because this was kind of at the height of everything, so I kind of understand it was crazy for her. And I let her know what it was. It was nothing. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on that right there? I actually say my piece on it. What's your
You know, I had a discussion about it. I think the school is going a bit far in suggesting to parents what they should wear to get into a place that has their children.
Okay.
I think they don't know for a situation. I don't think they're going there to socialize. It's just dealing with their children. And yet again, I think it puts more of a burden on those poor parents, probably majority of parents of color. Because I think while those clothes that were listed, they want to ban, I bet a mom can wear a workout outfit with a halter top.
But you,
so I get the standard, but I think the school may be going a bit outside of its purview.
I'll be honest, I'm not against it. I'm not against it.
Talk to me, really?
Because, okay, what she had listed was no leggings. And it was no leggings, nothing revealing the breasts, no pajama pants. There was a few other things, right?
Okay.
So when I go to my son's school, you typically see this right here, right? You got pajama pants.
Yes.
Well, we got kids in the room, so I won't go too far with that right there. But you got pajama pants, and things are just moving.
Right.
You know, mostly.
Right.
Then you got on, I think she said no bonnets as well. No
Okay.
bonnets or do-rags as well.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I don't think she's telling you to come in a suit or come in a dress that's a gown. She's just saying, because you look at, be presentable. And this is the African American lady, Miss Brown, right? And so what she's saying, because then you got to look at how it trickle down to the kids, right? You got a young lady coming in with pajama pants on with no undergarments on it, right? And things are just moving, right? So now you got to worry about a student seeing that, going to the child of that parent. Like, boy, you seen your mom? Well, your mom came in here and woo! You know what I'm saying? Now we got an issue ready to, get to some fisticuffs at this point. So, to what extent we go, I can understand that right there. Because one of the parents even made the point, what if I was coming from the gym? I'm like,
I think it's
but
so
even at
crazy.
the gym, you should be presentable.
I think you cannot pinpoint exactly what they should wear. Now, I'm sorry, some people do go a little far and beyond. The pajama pants and the bonnets and all that, and the no bras. Come on, and it's on both ends, because
Yes.
I've been in the car line. Lady must have had to run to the restroom, and that was just like, come on, lady, like, why even come pick your kid up? Because you would have a situation like having to go to the restroom, and I feel like for her to tell them, that's a different thing. As far as just saying, look, just try to be a little more presentable. I think it would be, because I think I saw a hair store sign that said you can't come in with certain stuff. It was like a bonnet or different stuff like that. That was crazy.
That's what I'm coming
Yeah, that was crazy. But
new bonnet.
I feel like you can't pinpoint exactly, but I think just in general we have to do better. Like it don't.
And I think ultimately that was her.
And it wasn't even just with schools, because I worked in daycare for a while and I seen some stuff.
Because it was like media, like you said, the media pretty much portrays and put out there what they want, right? Of course, it was going to start something, whatever. I don't think, like I said, that's the reason why I called her on 3 separate occasions. I wanted to get a little bit better understanding of what you meant, which I'm pretty sure it was just to raise the bar, because we already have this stigma, we already have this thing. So why not just raise the bar? I'm not telling you to come. Don't go to. I'm not saying go to Macy's and get this. Just put a bra on.
Clearly understand it. I get that. I'm all for higher standards. I think my thing was this. I felt almost as if it was an unnecessary jab, or because that same list could have had requirements. We require you to attend 3 PTA meetings a year. We require you to come have a meeting with your teacher twice a year.
Yes, sir.
Those standards,
Yeah.
I'm all for.
Way more important than the outfits when you look
How
at
they
it
look
that
at parents,
way.
I get it. I don't particularly disagree with it. I just think it's a misguided shot from the school. Yes, I'm not in favor of parents coming in with pajamas and bonnets. When they do, and it's us, I cringe. I'm with you. We're on the same team. I think it castigates some of those parents who may be getting off third shift, who may be going in, who have to, to get up and have enough getting 2 or 3 kids dressed to get to school, and I got to shower with all this too. So I think I I get it. I'm for it in principle. I just think it can. I'll say
Could have
this,
been executed a little bit better.
a little better, or maybe even toward a more substantive issue.
I think one of the parents said your focus should have been higher scores than the school right actually is known for higher scores. And I think one other parent said, I think she's feeling herself a little bit because she just got granted $100K. It was a campaign. Target was running balloons, something.
Mm-hmm.
They was on Ellen. She was on Ellen. And Ellen presented her the $100,000 check towards the
Really?
school. So some of the parents felt as if she may have gotten a bigger head because you can afford to get your hair done every week or whatever, or these type of garments, you know, so you might need to bring this down a little bit. So I see both sides of it,
Yeah,
but like you said,
yeah.
I'm with you 100% of let's raise the standard. Just put some underwear on.
I get that.
Let's do that right
Yeah.
there. Ladies, you have anything for Mr. Seldon?
No, that's all. I totally agree though. I feel like it starts even beyond, I'm going to say this, beyond schools, because
Yes.
even in childcare centers, you know, I understand it's early morning and a lot of us are just women that work there and you want to just come in how you are, you know, and just walk in there. Just be mindful, you know, we can't change that, but sometimes I think parents gotta also understand what your kids go through stuff because sometimes somebody may see you looking a certain way and it's like it caused them to get teased. You know, so you
Right,
gotta be
right.
mindful. You don't
True.
wanna just walk in any kind of way, you know, to you it may mean nothing like, oh, I don't care, you know, hey, ain't nothing but a bunch of kids. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
do make a
They're
difference.
kids, but understand,
You know.
the kids of today are not like the kids of yesterday.
Oh, they're
are
not.
very much more well educated, however it may have came about. So yes, it can very much lead to the bullying, to the suicide, so someone making jokes for you. Like, so
Yeah.
you look at it's not so much a self thing, just look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
How's this gonna affect my kids
Right.
and whatnot? So
Absolutely.
I'm leaving on that right now. That's what I'm saying. Mr. Seldon, you have anything, sir, that you would like to share with the people?
I just want to thank you too. It has been a pleasure.
Wasn't that bad, was it?
It wasn't big. I appreciate y'all taking it easy on me. But you know, knowing you two for this, I don't say it's a long while, but the short while I have, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know you two have always been grinders and hustlers and real thoughtful and intelligent. So I appreciate that and influence that you've had on my kids. And so I appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
sir.
Thank you.
Do
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
Pleasure. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This is With All Due Respect podcast presented by Mo Knows and your girl, Lady Simone, and our special guest, Mr. Seldon. All right? Till next time, y'all have yourself a good day.